5 years from now, like 2029, 100,000 qubit becomes cheap enough. Hundreds of thousands of hackers, they are going to just rent the 100,000 qubit quantum computer for say 8 hours or 10 hours to compromise Bitcoin wallet address, and that Bitcoin wallet address has not so many, maybe a few BTC. And it's hard to imagine like one BTC at that time it will worth how much.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Colors of Web3 and Entrepreneurship. My name is Lum, your Web3 host. Today we are still in the Web3 world. For those of you who are new to the show, Colors of Web3 and Entrepreneurship is a show highlighting the journeys of builders and innovators in Web3 and entrepreneurship. Some topics, especially in Web3, may get technical, but we do our best to keep it accessible for most people. Today I am joined by Duncan Wong. He's the founder of Abelian Foundation. Duncan, can you give a quick introduction about yourself?
Thanks, Lam. Hey, nice to be here. Sure. So about myself, I basically grew up in Hong Kong. My background is all about technical. I got my electrical and electronic engineering a long time ago, several decades ago. After that, I went to the States for my PhD in cryptography. So that's at that time I spent about 4 years focusing on doing research in different digital signature schemes, and as well as the key exchange protocols. So after that, I went back to Hong Kong being a professor for 13 years.
Wow.
So I have been doing research in digital signature, ring signature, anonymity, and all that until I got just so bored, and then joined the R&D center in Hong Kong for 3 years, and then decided to run something myself. And actually 6 years ago, I started thinking about this project, and 2 years ago, this project went live. Yeah, so I have been doing research basically in cryptography almost in my entire career. Yeah.
Wow, that's really awesome. And you said you were like a professor for 13 years, right? In Hong Kong. What was your main topic? Was that like just cryptography or
Yeah,
computer science?
yeah.
What was it? Yeah.
So at that time, I was with the Department of Computer Science at City University of Hong Kong. So in addition to teaching, basically like teaching cybersecurity, network security, as well as some postgraduate courses in cryptography, I have been just doing research with my PhD students, mainly in digital signature. So at that time, my focus was on how to make sure the digital signature is not just secure, but also anonymous. So which means you sign on a document while at the same time you are not releasing your identity. Only the verifier will be able to find out who you are, but not the public. So yeah, I love that kind of like privacy preserving technologies, and how to make sure we can ensure our privacy preserving or privacy enhancing without sacrificing too much in terms of the computation and all that. Yeah, so I've been working on that for my entire 13 years while I was a professor at that time. Yeah.
Exciting. I guess for those who may not be familiar with like digital signature, I guess now that a lot more people are more familiar with signature in a way, but maybe can you clarify, was some of your technology, was it adopted in commercial application, or like what was maybe to give some
Sure.
examples.
Yeah. So first of all, it's called digital signature. A little bit about the digital signature 101 is that it's basically trying to replicate the physical handwritten signature, right? So the handwritten signature has a major difference from digital signature is that when you write your signature or scribble your signature, it's irrelevant to the content, right? No matter what document you are signing, the signature is still the same. Digital signature is quite different. Digital signature, the signature depends on the content of the information that you sign. So when you generate digital signature, what we do first is to hash the message. So we hash the message no matter how big your message is, arbitrary length. You always hash that to a fixed length, say 64 byte. And then we would generate another binary string on that 64-byte hashed value. And that binary string is called signature, need to be unforgeable, right? We call it unforgeable, which means if you don't have my private key, you will not be able to create a similar signature that people can verify that correct. So this is called unforgeable. And unforgeable is very important because we can ensure another big term is called non-repudiation. Is that whenever I sign something, I cannot just say I have never signed before. So this is kind of like the basic security of a digital signature. It's called unforgeability. And then on top of it, my research at that time was mainly on not just unforgeability, but also on the signer's anonymity. So there is a term called ring signature, or the one that I co-invented was called linkable ring signature. So linkable ring signature basically means that after I generate a signature, the verifier will only be able to know I'm one of the many signers. So I have basically like a group or a ring of signers, and then I'm hiding myself within that group of signers. And you can verify that this signature is indeed signed by one of the signers in the ring, but you cannot tell who he is. So linkable ring signature basically means that if you sign twice, then your identity will be released. So actually there is a blockchain system called Monero. Monero is a privacy coin, right? And it's out back to 2014, 10 years ago. And that project was basically based on one of my papers that I published in 2004. So of course I didn't patent it, and I was at that time I was just so happy that my paper was finally in use in practice. So they make use of the linkable ring signature scheme that I co-proposed and published back to 2004. So after 10 years of waiting, and then some talented developers, they found out how to make use of linkable ring signature to build such a privacy coin called Monero. So that's really exciting. And at that time, I was still a professor at City University of Hong Kong, and that actually just drove me further to do not just the research, but also the coding implementation of something I hope is even cooler.
Fascinating. Yeah, thank you for sharing the history. I did not know that your paper made such a huge impact. Led to the, I guess it's probably safe to say that led to the creation of Monero. I think most people in Web3 will probably have either known or heard of Monero by now. That's very cool. And then wait, so for the digital signature, right? If I understand correctly, they I think they for them to work properly, they have to work on a blockchain, right? Because like for example, to check to make sure that it's like you only sign once. If you sign twice, it will be invalid. So it probably need to be recorded somewhere, right? Is my understanding correct? Yeah.
So it really depends on the use case. For example, we all have heard about like SSL, right? The SSL, the secure socket layer. In fact, the secure socket layer, there is a one variant or maybe one version of the SSL is to make use of digital signature. So it's not necessarily that you have to publish the signature. This really depends on your use case. For example, the digital signature is just used in one of the protocols for establishing a secure channel. You don't need to publish your signature. All you need is to set the signature to the verifier. As long as the verifier can find the signature and can verify the signature, that's good enough. But you are right. So for some other scenario, say I'm going to write a patent, and then I want to publish this patent, and I want to timestamp it. So I want to sign this patent. And then this signature, as well as the patent, definitely I would love to put it onto the blockchain so everybody can tell the timestamp. And also I would like to put my signature there as well so that I can claim the authorship of it as well. So in that use case, definitely we would love to publish the signature as well. And we don't want the identity to be hidden either in most of the cases.
I see. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So I think when I was thinking, I think nowadays when people probably, if you say like digital signature for non-technical people, I think first thing probably come to mind is like, oh, I'm signing a document, right? For example, like a legal document, you sign on like DocuSign or Adobe Sign. So would that be? I guess, well, technically, it is a digital signature per se, right? But it's
Yeah.
probably
So when we talk about it, yeah, you're absolutely right. So when we talk about the digital signature, sometimes we abuse this term a little bit to make that more generic. So basically, like when you use the PDF file and then you just attach a signature image there, and then we
right.
also call it like the e-sign it, right? The electronic signature of it.
Yes.
From the cryptography perspective, that's not counted. But actually, when you use DocuSign, the underlying system has the digital signature, has the cryptographic digital signature to really digitally sign or cryptographically sign the PDF file. So the PDF file cannot be changed. So who signed that? Actually, DocuSign signed it on behalf of us as individuals. So that's why as individuals like you and me, we don't need to have any private key when we use, say, DocuSign. But actually, DocuSign themselves, they have a private key, and then they use that private key to generate digital signature for every single PDF file that we signed on. So they are basically signing on behalf of us. And if you read their terms and conditions and those fine print, they have mentioned that explicitly as well, that they will basically digitally sign the document on behalf of every single one of us. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, this is like new learning for me. I did not know that. So basically, after, let's say, I sign a document, then DocuSign will sign it afterward digitally. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Before
So
sending?
first of
Yeah.
all, like you receive an email, right, with the link of the
Yeah.
DocuSign link, and then all they are doing is we call it the authentication to authenticate that you really have access to that email. That's it. So they don't know who you are. They don't know whether you are Lam or Duncan or some other impersonator. No idea.
Yeah.
But what all they know is that someone who has access to your email address that you claim. That's Lam's email address. And then once you go onto DocuSign, and then you just sign, scribble, whatever you do, that's all the
Yeah.
graphical presentation. That's the user, that's the UI basically. And after we press the finish or confirm or whatever button it is, behind the scene, what they do is to generate that PDF file, and then they generate a digital signature, a cryptographic digital signature to sign that PDF file for us. So they have the private key, and after generating that signature, they also attach that signature at we call it the metadata section of that PDF file. So when you use, say, Adobe Acrobat to open that file, you will not be able to see it. But it's actually embedded inside that PDF file. That's the digital signature inside there. It's for the machine to read it, not for us to read it.
I see. Wow.
Yeah,
Fascinating. Yeah, I'm learning a lot of new
yeah,
things today about digital signature. Interesting. And then, well, going back to your background, you said you went
yeah.
to work after being a professor, right? For 13 years, you went to work at like a research and development. Was this at a Web3 company, or was it a not
Yeah,
like private
so
company, or what was it?
yeah, so about 10 years ago, I just took a sabbatical. You know, the professorship, we usually
Yeah,
have like a sabbatical after, say, what, three,
yeah,
4 years, so that we will be able to recharge ourselves. So back to 2014, I decided to, instead of visiting some other universities to do research, I decided to join an R&D center in Hong Kong. It's a
yeah.
government fund R&D center, the biggest one in Hong Kong. They have about 600 engineers. About one third of
Wow.
them were PhD students, PhD graduates, not just students. They are
Mm.
graduates. So I went there, and then I was assigned to create the fintech department, so-called. So that's back to 2014, and I was assigned to do that. And at that time, I just created basically four little departments, the so-called ABCD departments, and B stands for blockchain. So A
Yeah.
is the analytic, right? C is the
Mm.
cybersecurity, and actually the A is not the analytic. I remember incorrectly. A is actually the AI. So B is
Ah,
the
I see.
blockchain. Yeah. C is the cybersecurity, and B is the data analytics. Yeah. So since then, I started really looking into the implementation of blockchain. While at that time I was working with the central bank, I was also working with a few banks like HSBC, Stanchart, and
Was it
some
Central
other
Bank of Hong
banks.
Kong?
Yeah, the Central Bank of Hong Kong called Hong Kong Monetary Authority. So we focus on the enterprise blockchain application at that time, like how to make use of blockchain technologies to connect all the banks together, as well as the suppliers, kind of like the supply chain thing, so that they can streamline their trade finance applications. Yeah, we also work with them on the central bank digital currency stuff as well at that time, CBDC. Yeah, yeah, I learned a lot. Basically, from at that time, learn a lot, especially about the commercial side. While at the same time, I just try my best to contribute my cryptography know-how to the industry, and found that it's very fascinated by all the so-called um, practical problems, if you will. Like they just have so many like very interesting challenges. While I think cryptography can really contribute a lot, so that actually drive me. And at that time, I was thinking that maybe I just took a few more years of a sabbatical and try to work for the industry more, and try to build some systems for them. Yeah, that's how I started really thinking about quitting rather than extending my sabbatical, because it's impossible for me to keep holding the position as a professor position at the university while at the same time I was not teaching, I was not doing research, but actually focusing on all those industrial problems. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Wow, that's very fascinating career journey, I would say. Um, Before we deep dive into the company, actually, I would like to ask one fun personal question. Like, can you share with us your personal hobbies? What do you do for fun outside of work?
Um, a lot actually. I love
Yeah.
sports a lot. Yeah, I play tennis. I swim a lot, and as a Hong Kong guy, I love hiking a lot. Yeah, so
Nice.
almost every
Nice.
single weekend, I would go to the suburb and do some hiking.
I
Yeah,
see.
so I'm a big hiking fan. So in addition to that, yeah, gaming is also another thing. Computer games, I've never stopped playing computer games. Yeah, since young. So this is really typical engineering mindset,
Yeah,
engineering
computer science, right? Yeah,
hobbies. Yeah,
I
yeah,
see. I see. Awesome,
yeah,
fascinating. Yeah, hiking is fun for sure. I mean, I go hike sometimes too.
yeah.
And yeah, I think we all, for and any of us who actually studied computer science, I think most of us have played some sort of game. I used to play a lot of games when I was younger, just for fun,
Uh-huh.
obviously. Now I don't have time for games anymore, but yeah, it's still fun to play once in a while.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and maybe deep dive into your current company, Abelian Foundation. Maybe you can quickly touch upon how you found it, what was the founding story, and feel free to
Yeah,
share any presentation or slide that you have prepared along the way as well too.
sure, sure.
Yeah, for your company.
So maybe let me just talk a little bit about
Hmm.
why I would like to work on this project before sharing the deck.
Sure. Yeah,
Um,
good idea.
yeah, so I think the whole idea actually started when I was working uh, at that R&D center called Applied Science and Research Technology Institute.
Hmm.
So while I was working in that R&D center, um, I was trying to identify some so-called open problem in the blockchain industry or blockchain arena. And one thing which is also closely related to my own research interests is on quantum resistance. So actually, when I was a professor, I've been doing research in quantum resistance cryptography. We call it the post-quantum cryptography. So post-quantum cryptography basically means that we want to build crypto systems or break crypto systems. Let me just focus on building crypto systems. So we want to build crypto systems which are secure against hackers, even if we assume that the hackers have powerful quantum computers. So, when we do research, we usually do research um, that may become true in 5 to 10 years from
Yeah.
the time that we do research, right? And then
Yeah.
we will usually take like 3 5 years to do the transform transformation from academic or the research to practice. So so that's why at that time we were already thinking about what if we call it the universal quantum computer become mature, and everybody can just kind of like the Google Cloud or those AWS VMs, but you can just rent quantum computers, and you can rent it for a couple of hours, and then you can make use of those quantum computers to crack codes, to break all those crypto systems. So what if that becomes reality? And would the Bitcoin system be still secure? Ethereum, you name it, all the altcoins, would they be still secure? So the answer is actually very obvious, because it's obviously negative, unfortunately. The reason is that all the existing blockchain systems at that time were based on, we call it the elliptic curve cryptography. So elliptic curve cryptography was invented back to the 80s of last century. And it's been well known that it's not secure against quantum computer. So that's why it's a very straightforward open problem that it's definitely not raised by us, by some other cryptographers, that it would be great if we will be able to upgrade Bitcoin to quantum resistant. So actually that's our original motivation. Our original motivation was to really look into the Bitcoin system and see how to operate it. And then I myself, together with a few other professors from other universities, like from Nanyang Technological University in Singapore, NTU, U of Wollongong in Australia. We all look into this problem, and then we just realized it's actually not that straightforward if we just simply upgrade Bitcoin, and then we can assume that everybody will be able to adopt this post-quantum version of Bitcoin. And what happens if people do not want to upgrade to the post-quantum one, and then their wallets will be stuck. So basically, the problem or the challenge is that it's just very difficult in practice to transform Bitcoin to post-quantum overnight, or even if I give, say, 5 years of time for everybody to upgrade from the existing Bitcoin system to post-quantum. There will be a lot of like non-technical issues or challenges to do the upgrade. So, and also there will be a lot of limitations to do the upgrade. Like they have a lot of legacy issues on the data structure. You know, the upgrades on the set weight and also some other kinds of the Schnorr, digital signature change, and the data structure change, and all that. If we want to make sure, and also a lot of protocols already running on top of it. For example, the Lightning protocol already running on it. So if we want to make any change, we have to make sure all these protocols need to be upgraded somehow, and also these transitioning scheduling need to be well designed in order to make sure we will not break the system. It's just the engineering work will be quite overwhelming. So actually we decided, hey, instead of like making this kind of great engineering event, why don't we do something so that we can so-called exemplify to the industry, hey, how to build a post-quantum system or a quantum resistant blockchain. And then we start from scratch, build something which is really elegant, unique, and beautifully coded, so that everybody will be able to consider that as kind of like a new generation or new paradigm for really building a quantum resistant blockchain system. And that's how we began back to 2018. Yeah. So yeah, maybe I share the deck over here, and then I can continue giving a little bit of the details over there.
Yes, please. And I think one question that, I mean, even before beginning, is that like, what is how strong is like quantum computing? Because I think, you know, for the average consumer or user out there, right, they're probably not so much familiar with the power of the, you know, quantum computing. Maybe if you can give a comparison between power quantum computing versus like your regular laptop, MacBook, or whatever. That'll be
Yeah. So in fact, in this stack, I'm going to go through some of the slides which basically explain the quantum computer as well.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, it
Yeah.
will not take very long, and
Okay.
I hope that I will be able to give a pretty high level description over there, so that when if the listeners or those viewers they are interested, they will be able to find some of the links and dig deeper.
Cool.
Yeah. So as you can see, I'm not sure whether you can see the slide. This is the first slide.
I can see. I can see. Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah. So how we position this project, just like what I mentioned at the very beginning, is that we would like to build a quantum resistant blockchain ecosystem, while at the same time, as I mentioned, I'm a big fan of privacy enhancing technology, or so-called privacy preserving technology. So Abelian actually has two missions. I call it the first mission as quantum resistant blockchain as the mission one. It's basically the underlying mission. The second mission is that we would like to provide some privacy enhancing features that I'm going to cover very soon. So this one is basically like a very brief summary about what exactly Abelian is. So first of all, Abelian is a proof of work based quantum resistant chain. The proof of work part is basically GPU. Right now, we still stick to the GPU because we would like it to be more accessible by most of the miners. You don't need to buy any specialized hardware devices in order to mine Abelian. As long as you have a GPU card, you can basically mine Abelian and join the system. So if we have more miners, then the system is becoming more decentralized and more secure. So that's the reason why we would like to have the POW base. And then recently we are actually building the layer 2. The layer 2 is really for scalability. We would like to achieve 1,000 transactions per second, and also we would like it to support the smart contract, so it's EVM compatible. And then the third part about the Abelian project is really about the bridge. So this bridge that we wrote the yellow paper last year, and it's already published, called Post-Quantum Zero Knowledge Bridge. So this bridge basically connects Abelian as well as the layer 2 Q-Day together in order to make sure layer 2 is also quantum resistant. And down the road, we would like to also expand this bridge so that Abelian can connect to other chains, and other chains will also become quantum resistant. So that we hope that Abelian can become a foundation for the quantum resistance for many other blockchain systems as well. So the second mission I mentioned is called privacy preserving. And we have 3 levels of privacy preserving our Abelian. And the first one is called pseudonymous, just like Bitcoin. And then the second one that later on I will give a little bit more detail is called accountable anonymity. And then the third one is called fully private. It's kind of like Monero. So from my perspective, I consider Bitcoin as pseudonymous because everybody can find out the balance, right, of the wallet address. So you cannot hide your balance. And also, when you send your transactions out, people can trace the whereabouts, which wallet address that you sent to, and where are those coins coming from. So it's called traceable. So that's why it's just pseudonymous, because the wallet address is not linked to the identity. It's just pseudonymous. But it's totally traceable. It's totally kind of like transparent. So of course, there will be a lot of good and bad things that we can talk about. But that's basically the privacy. For the full privacy like Monero, we know that the addresses are all hidden. And also even the transaction amount is encrypted or is hidden. So nobody will be able to find out your balance. And also nobody can trace your transaction. While at the same time, the regulatory bodies may also be concerned about the AML issue and some of the terrorist activities as well. So there are always like different kinds of trade-offs that we need to figure out. But from Abelian's perspective, we would like to throw out all these technologies, and we try to work together with the regulatory bodies in order to fulfill different jurisdictions' requirements, while at the same time to maximize the privacy assurance to individual users. So I would like to also talk a little bit about this accountable anonymity. It's a new term that we invented. So if you just think about anonymity, basically it's referring to the full privacy, but it's accountable, which means there is a kind of like a viewing key that you can actually share this viewing key with a regulatory body or authority. So the authority can trace your transactions, can find your balance, but the public cannot. So we call it the accountable because the regulatory bodies will be able to find out the information so that you can fulfill the regulatory requirements, while at the same time you can still ensure your privacy. Yeah. So so we have all these three different levels of anonymity right now for Abelian.
Interesting. So one quick question about accountable anonymity. Sure. So basically, would that mean like it's visible for the government or the authority? So you like grant access for them to have visibility, but like the public cannot see. Is that correct?
Okay. Exactly. Yeah. While at the same time, the authority will not be able to control your wallet. So they don't have your private key. They don't have your keys. So all those tokens will still belong to you. Yeah. You just provide the transparency to the regulatory bodies.
Yeah, makes sense.
All right. Yeah. So the next one, get back to your previous question, a little bit about the quantum computer itself. So about the quantum computer, we know actually a lot of those IT companies, they are already working so hard and invested a lot on quantum computer. And why the quantum computer is actually posing a big threat to blockchain is because of this guy. So back to basically 30 years ago, back to 1994, so an MIT professor called Shor, he invented an algorithm. And the algorithm is, we generally call it the Shor's quantum algorithm. And this algorithm can basically break the existing digital signature schemes that are currently used by almost all the blockchain systems. So for example, Bitcoin, Ethereum, they are using the elliptic curve cryptography. And by using Shor's quantum algorithm, and then if you have a powerful quantum computer, that you can make use of the quantum computer to run Shor's algorithm, then you can basically break Bitcoin's wallets, because you can actually reverse the elliptic curve public key back to the private key directly by using Shor's algorithm. So because of this algorithm, and then, sorry for being a little bit technical over here, is that in this diagram, we just need to focus on this red triangle here, is that on the ledger of every single blockchain, our public keys are all published onto the ledger. So for example, say I'm Bob, and my public key will be there as long as I sent one transaction out. So if I have one transaction out, my public key can be found on the ledger. So once the public key is there, and if the hacker has a quantum computer, then the hacker can apply Shor's algorithm to reverse this private key and get my private key. So once the adversary or the attacker gets my private key, basically the adversary has my wallet. So that's basically disaster. And so how many, we call it the qubits of the quantum computer, do we need in order to crack Bitcoin, for example? The recent research basically says that if there is a quantum computer which has 100,000 qubits, then the hacker can basically crack Bitcoin within a day, within 24 hours. So that's very scary.
Wow. Yeah, that is scary.
Yeah. And then maybe the next question is that exactly how many qubits that we can build today, right? Like how many qubits we have right now, and then how long it would take before a real quantum machine, which has 100,000 qubits, can be built. So, so here are some data. Like 5 years ago, IBM, Google, they independently built quantum computers, and their quantum computers had only less than 100 qubits. So compared with 100,000 qubits, this is just a toy. It has no use. But just 2 years later, back to 2021, another company, they built a 256 qubit. And then last year, IBM built a 1,000 qubit, and then they plan to build a 4,000 qubit next year. And then before 2033, they will be able to build a qubit, a quantum computer which has at least 100,000 qubits. So they basically pave a roadmap in this way. And this is we call it the IBM speed, right? I'm not saying that they are slow, but when they promise in this way, which means some of the startups or maybe some like NSA or some kinds of federal government or state-owned research labs, they might be able to build a quantum computer with 100K qubits way earlier than that. And that's why if we ask those quantum computing scientists about when that we will be able to build a quantum computer which has at least 100 qubits, usually people will say, hey, 3 to 5 years from now, some of the research labs will be able to build one. And then within 10 years' time, a 100,000 qubit quantum machine will become a commodity, will become something that which is so cheap that almost everybody can rent it, just like the AWS VMs. So that's the current scenario. That's the current situation. And that's why actually if we look into like different countries and those major IT companies, they are actually racing against each other right now to build crypto systems which can be secure against quantum computer. So I actually have a few more slices, but I think this slide can be quite important to understand about the quantum computer and the relationship between the quantum computer and blockchain. So first of all, over 99% of our computer systems, not just limited to blockchain, today are using elliptic curve cryptography, ECC. So this elliptic curve cryptography is not quantum resistant. And the reason why we need to upgrade the ECC to post-quantum is that hackers can always launch something called HNDL, hack now, decrypt later. So what it means is that a hacker right now can steal your information first. For example, steal your public key, steal your ciphertext, and then they just archive all the information that they steal today. And then they just wait for 3 years maybe, or 4 years. And once the quantum computers are becoming very cheap, then they can just hack all the things that they stole today, right? So that's why this HNDL thing is getting a real threat. And different, like many countries, they are already urging their different like federal government or different governmental departments to upgrade their systems now, because they will not be able to afford like being hacked now. But even if those hacked information are ciphertexts, but very soon those ciphertexts can be cracked by using the quantum computer. So this is actually the reason why the blockchain systems nowadays are also trying to upgrade now rather than waiting until the quantum computer become mature. Because quantum computer, once they become mature, it's already too late. All your wallets will already be owned by hackers. Yeah, so we have to upgrade well before. That's right.
Makes sense. One quick question about quantum computers and computing is that I think right now it's really not accessible for individual, right? It's just mainly in big companies and maybe like huge organization like government, maybe. Is that correct?
Partially. So first of all, about those most updated ones, maybe right now some of the companies, they have already built like 4,000 or even 10,000 qubit computers. Those quantum computers might only be accessible by, say, state-owned research labs or those big companies. But in previous slide, when I talk about, say, IBM, the 1,000 qubit computer, they are already allowing everybody to access it, just like the cloud computing. Like you can remotely access the IBM quantum computer with 1,000 qubits, and you can basically rent by hours. So it's already open to the public. Yeah.
I see. Okay, cool. And then how different is it to, or how difficult is it to use such a quantum computer? Is it like very different from what the computers that we used to? Yeah.
So in fact, it's almost the same. So from the user or the so-called developer's perspective, all you need to do is still kind of like remotely access the virtual machine. So just like AWS, you SSH into it, and then you start running your commands. So for quantum computer, it's the same thing. You remotely access a quantum computer, and then you would download your program written for the quantum computer, and then you just type in the commands so that the quantum computer will start running your instructions. So the user experience is basically the same. Yeah.
I see. So basically, you can run like whatever programs you run on your current laptop, MacBook, desktop, whatever, and then it can still run on the quantum. Okay, makes sense.
Exactly. So what you can imagine is that the quantum computer is remotely placed, and then we have some clients, and those clients are just our laptops or desktop computers, and those clients are used for remotely accessing the quantum computer. That's right. And then you can actually imagine, like remotely, you have this machine taking instructions from you. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And taking instructions from you, and then start crunching the numbers, and then getting back to your desktop or laptop. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So so let's move on. In fact, the next part that I would like to talk about is that, as you can see, the quantum computer is becoming imminent, and it's coming up very, very soon. And right now, as cryptographers and also the government, we are all trying to so-called standardizing the post-quantum crypto systems. The reason why we want to standardize the post-quantum crypto systems is that without the standard, we don't know which one is considered to be secure enough or well studied. So if it is standardized, we can communicate with each other using the standardized algorithms. And at the same time, before doing the standardization, a lot of engineers, researchers, professors, we have been spending years to make sure that those crypto systems are secure. So for example, like the American NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology, last year, they published 3 drafts. So this year, they are going to convert these 3 drafts into formal standards. So these 3 drafts right now are used for standardizing post-quantum encryption and post-quantum digital signatures. So for example, like over here, I wrote the module lattice-based key encapsulation mechanism system, a standard. So what it means is that it's basically a post-quantum encryption algorithm. And this post-quantum encryption algorithm, once this one is standardized, the federal government is going to use this encryption algorithm to replace all their existing ones. Actually, the entire world is going to make use of this post-quantum encryption algorithm to replace their existing systems. So the second one and the third one, they are both digital signature schemes. They are lattice-based. Another one is hash-based. But anyway, they are all post-quantum digital signature standards. And everybody can make use of this post-quantum digital standards to upgrade their existing digital signatures algorithms. Yeah. So in fact, some of the companies, they are already using them. So for example, like Google. So Google, they have already incorporated the digital signature schemes, post-quantum digital signature, as well as encryption schemes into the Google Chrome. So if you have a server which supports the post-quantum encryption or digital signature, you can actually make use of your Google Chrome to establish a secure post-quantum channel with the server. Yeah. Say Signal, they also have already incorporated this post-quantum encryption scheme into their system. Even some of the big companies like HSBC, PayPal, they have joined some of those quantum resistance group, try to understand more about that and get themselves ready for this post-quantum. And this year, even the US government has already announced that they are moving towards post-quantum rather than sticking back to the elliptic curve. Yeah, so everybody is already moving. And right now in blockchain industry, we are also moving, and we try to promote post-quantum blockchain so that we hope that in the very near future, everybody will become post-quantum. Yeah. So the next part, I would like to just briefly talk about is basically the technologies that we are currently using on Abelian. We are basically based on the standardized quantum, post-quantum cryptographic systems. We use the standardized ones. It's obvious because they are well studied by the international scholars, and especially this crystals kyber as well as the crystals lithium. They are lattice based, and the Abelian is basically inspired or based on these algorithms. Yeah. So another part that I also mentioned previously is this post-quantum zero knowledge bridge. So right now, this bridge is basically designed and implemented to connect the Abelian layer 1 with the Abelian layer 2. And layer 2 is called Q day, due to the obvious reason. Q stands for quantum, so it's a quantum day. And layer 2 is EVM compatible, is POS, and the layer 1 is POW. And the bridge is to connect them together so that all the layer 1, layer 2, and including all the peripherals, all those encryption systems, or the digital signature systems are post-quantum or quantum system. Yeah. We do want to extend this bridge down the road, but we need to do more research as to how to extend this bridge so that Abelian will be able to connect to other blockchain systems. So this is also something that we are actively doing the research on.
Interesting.
And another topic I would also like to share is this concept called digital gold, and we call it the digital gold 2.0. The reason is that we consider Bitcoin as digital gold 1.0. So everybody is talking about like Bitcoin is the digital gold, but to us, I think the part that I'm not a big fan of Bitcoin is that it does not provide me enough anonymity. So I have been spending a lot of effort to make sure my wallet address will not be leaked, will not be linked to myself. So that's the anonymity part. But I will not be able to prevent anybody to trace the transactions or to find out the balance of every single wallet address. So even if you compare with the banking account, we are not like disclosing our banking balance to everybody. So if you think about the BTC or if you think about the gold, like how much gold that you are holding, that you do not need to publish it, right? So digital gold actually, in terms of the privacy assurance, is actually not as good as physical gold, right? Because of this balance disclosure as well as the transaction, the transaction traceability issue. So I call that digital gold 1.0. And then for digital gold 2.0 for the Abelian, all I want to do is to make sure it's also providing enough privacy assurance. So this is why we call it the accountable wallet. Accountable wallet basically means that to the public, my balance does not need to disclose to the public. So even if somebody knows my wallet address, nobody is able to find out the balance of my wallet. And also if I send a lot of transactions out, or if I receive some transactions, nobody will be able to tell how much I received and how many transactions I made. So I want to keep all those private to the public. While at the same time, I have a viewing key. And then I can share this viewing key with an authority. So if because of the AML requirement or something, or maybe some auditing requirements, I can actually share this viewing key with my accountant, for example, or some of the authority, depending on the requirements. And then the accountant will be able to trace or to find out all the transaction details, all the transaction logs. So I will be able to fulfill the regulatory requirements while at the same time ensure my privacy. So this is how I call it the digital gold 2.0. And this is what I want to achieve. And so far, Abelian, to my best knowledge, is the only public blockchain which can support both post-quantum as well as the privacy preserving, accountable privacy preserving. Yeah.
First.
Yeah, so the next part kind of like a summary, is about a little bit about the tokenomics about this Abelian system. Abelian is GPU based proof of work. So this link is our foundation mining pool. There are a couple of other mining pools on the community. And this is the foundation supported one, official one. So if you have at least one GPU card, you can basically just spin up your mining machine, and then you can start mining. So for example, like at the very beginning, you asked me about my hobbies and things. I love computer games. I love playing computer games. So I have a bunch of GPU cards. I can just make use of some of my old GPU cards and spin them up and start mining Abelian. So about Abelian.
So for mining, I'm just curious. Like, do you build your own like client so that people can just use it and run the mining? Yeah.
So if you have a desktop machine with a GPU card there, then you can just download the software from this mathschool.org, and the brief instruction is also there. Then you can just run that software. That software is going to control the GPU cards to do the mining and then report the mining results to the pool. Yeah. So it's very straightforward. Yeah. And also, right now, the Abelian native token is called ABEL, ABEL. And there are about 40% of the tokens being mined. And then the remaining 60% will be mined in the coming 30 years. But actually, by the middle of next year, 50% of all the coins will be mined. So it's very similar to the Bitcoin tokenomics. So every 3.25 years, there will be halving occurred. So right now, for example, every block, there will be 256 ABELs mined. And then by the middle of 2025, next year, there will be a halving. And then every block will contain 128 ABELs mined. Yeah. So we are actually following the original Bitcoin mechanism to do that, and I'll try to encourage more miners to join us with their GPU cards. So right now, ABEL is already listed on 3 exchanges, MEXC, XT, and CoinStore. We are going to have more exchanges going to list ABEL, and very soon in the coming few months, that we are going to make some announcements about other exchanges. Yeah. And also another exciting thing for us is that we are actually spending a lot of time building this layer 2. And then the layer 2 is called QDay. So QDay chain, and with the native token called QDay, will be out as well. Yeah. So we want to build this ecosystem, and this ecosystem is not just post-quantum, but also support all kinds of dApps. And that's why we like to support this EVM compatible smart contract as well as this quantum system.
Exciting.
Yeah. So that's it for the very brief introduction over here, and the QR code over here is basically our Twitter account. So please feel free follow us on the Twitter, and then get all the latest and exciting news from us as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Yeah, actually, I have a few questions maybe just to related to quantum computing and what your blockchain is running. But I guess first one is that what makes quantum computing so powerful? Like what enables them? Is it something inherent to quantum computers that make them very strong and powerful compared to regular computers?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So if you look into the quantum computer, the main difference between a quantum computer and a conventional computer is that a conventional computer, for every single bit, you can only represent either 1 or 0, right? Yeah. So for every single bit, you cannot represent both 0 or 1. Yeah. For quantum computer, it's totally different. For a quantum computer, for each bit, we call it the qubit, Q-U-B-I-T. So for each bit, it has a certain percentage representing 0 and certain percentage representing 1. So that percentage is kind of like a probability. The magical part about this is that for every qubit, it's no longer just black or white. It's basically grayscale all the time. It's analog. It's not digital. It's a certain percentage 0 or certain percentage 1. So if you will be able to come up with a quantum algorithm that you can do some calculation using quantum qubits, you can imagine every time when you do the quantum computation, you can actually calculate the scenarios of both 0 and 1 at the same time, rather than either 1 or 0 for the conventional computer. For the conventional computer, say you have 2 inputs. So these 2 inputs, will have either like 0, 0 as the two inputs, right? Or you have 0, 1 as the two inputs, or you have 1, 0 as the inputs, or 1, 1 as the inputs, right? So altogether, you have this like 4 different scenarios, and every time you can only pick one out of these 4 scenarios to do the calculation. So if you want to say crack a password, and then you have to try all the 4 possibilities for the 2 bits. So you have to do 4 times. But for a quantum computer, you have these 2 qubits, and then you can do the calculation of these 4 scenarios in just one calculation. And then you can have certain probability or like scenario 0, scenario 1, 2, and 3. And then you just need to do one single calculation, and you can do both of 4 scenarios at the same time. So another way to say it is that by using quantum computer, in some of the calculations, you can do everything in parallel rather than in sequence. And for example, like the elliptic curve, the Shor's quantum algorithm, sure find a way to crack the elliptic curve by using some parallel computation rather than sequential calculation. It's like if you use a conventional computer to crack the elliptic curve, you have to do it one by one. It's kind of like brute force.
Yeah.
But if you use a quantum computer, you can do all the calculation in parallel. So that's why you can actually, as long as you have enough number of qubits, you can do that in parallel, and then you can just finish all the calculation in a matter of hours. So that's the powerful part about quantum computer versus the conventional computer. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Yeah, fascinating. Yeah, when you explain like that, I think it totally makes sense, and no wonder why it's so powerful and much faster than the traditional computer that we're using. Yeah, and another question, I guess, related to your main layer 1 blockchain is that like what characteristics in there that actually allow it to be quantum resistant? I think earlier you mentioned like the standard, right? The
Yeah.
crystal kyber something. I'm to be honest,
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
so familiar with that, but maybe you can
No
explain.
worries. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So actually, it's also related to the quantum computer part. So about the quantum computer, as I mentioned, every single qubit can represent both 0 and 1 in certain probability. And right now, the main challenge is to be able to build more qubits in one single machine, because every single qubit is very unstable. And in order to make that stable, in the past, we tried to like lower the temperature to like minus 270 degrees Celsius in order to make sure every single qubit can be stable enough. And nowadays, we have new technology that we will be able to run the qubit in room temperature and so on. So this technology keep advancing. And about how to defend against the quantum computer, the way to do it, for example, by using lattice space, is to introduce error. What I mean by introducing error is that when we construct, this is related to lattice-based cryptography. So in lattice-based cryptography, what we are trying to do is that we have some kinds of like error messages, or you can imagine it's like error correcting mechanism. That if you know the private key, you can correct the error. You can remove the error. You can eliminate the error so that you can decrypt correctly, or you can sign correctly. If you don't have the private key, you don't know how much error or how much noise that you introduce into the calculation. So that's why, for example, like when you do an encryption, after doing the encryption, if you don't have the private key, you will not be able to remove the noise from the ciphertext. And that's why you will not be able to recover the plain text. So if you have the private key, first of all, you can remove the noise, and then you can decrypt it so that you can recover the plain text. So that's basically like the fundamental of lattice-based cryptography, is to introduce noise. And then how much noise and how exactly the noise is introduced in, depending on your private key. So the private key is basically like noise introduction mechanism, is to introduce the noise into your encryption process. So for example, like we use the Kyber, the crystals Kyber for the encryption part in order to encrypt the transaction volume, so that nobody will be able to find out how much that I'm transmitting, how many tokens that I'm transferring. And also we use the dilithium to build the linkable ring signature, so that we can actually ensure the privacy of the sender And also we have something called stealth address, which is a pseudonymous mechanism. It's a single knowledge proof system. We all make use of this lattice space to introduce noise into the system. So without the private key, you will not be able to find out the identity, or you will not be able to find out the balance because of the noise introduced by the private key.
Interesting. Yeah, I think that makes sense. So I guess for like every transaction, is it safe to say every transaction on the Abelian blockchain, there will always be some sort of an error, like you said, or the noise introduced into every transaction?
Yes.
Oh,
So every
okay.
single transaction has a digital signature. So that digital signature is generated by introducing noise into it. That's right.
I see. Makes sense. Right. Yeah. Super fascinating. Actually, yeah, I would like to maybe chit chat a bit more about like the maybe the team behind this. So
Uh-huh.
how many people are in your in the Abelian Foundation, working for the Abelian Foundation at the moment?
So at this moment, we have 30 people full time, and we have a few professors. They are not counted in this 30 people because they are basically doing the research. So about the Abelian Foundation, what we are doing is to base on all the published papers. So we don't do any proprietary research over there. Whenever we have any research results together with some universities, as I mentioned, the NTU, U of Wollongong, we publish that. And then once it's published, which means all those results have been peer reviewed by cryptographers in the world, then in our team, 30 people, we have about 2/3 of them focusing on doing the engineering work, doing the software development, as well as building other kinds of tools like wallets, like mining pool that you see, and also the mining client software and so on.
I see. Cool. With 30 people, 20 engineering. So I guess 10 is would be like commercial and business operation, right?
That's
Yeah.
right, yeah.
Yeah. So what do you say are like the main challenges facing with your team in
I think
building
the main
this?
challenge right now, from the technical perspective, one of them is the bridge that I mentioned, the post-quantum zero knowledge bridge. That one right now, we will be able to build something just for the Abelian as well as our layer 2 Q-Day, but we haven't been able to build one which can support other blockchain systems. So this is kind of like an open problem to the community, to the entire industry, is that how we will be able to build or so-called extend the post-quantum um, bridge so that we can connect Abelian with other blockchain systems. So this is kind of like the technical challenge. And in general, for us, right now, the challenge is really about the speed. How we will be able to roll out more exciting tools as early as possible. This is really challenging for us because what we are seeing is that the quantum computer development is getting faster and faster. It's kind of like, I call it the Moore's law. The Moore's law basically it actually started back to the 80s, like the IC industry, that the engineer called Moore, and he basically coined this Moore's law. Basically means that every 18 months the speed or the IC density can double, and kind of like the quantum computer development is also following this Moore's law. Like every 18 months, the number of qubit doubles. So I would also like to see our Abelian systems can also be developed fast enough. So that's why we are actually still hiring more and more engineers to build other kinds of tools. For example, right now we already have this layer 1, and in about 10 days time, there will be a hard fork. And after the hard fork, we are going to propose something similar to DRC20, some scripting language on our system. But at the same time, we will also like to make our system more efficient and faster. And this will also involve more engineering work. So I would say the challenge over here is to be able to bring more talented cryptographers as well as developers to this community, and so that everybody will be able to work together and build faster and build more exciting applications on Abelian.
I see. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, certainly. I mean, a blockchain ecosystem need a lot of developer. What languages do you expect the developer to know to be able to write maybe application or things on your blockchain? Yeah.
So the Abelian ecosystem actually has several layers. So for example, like the Abelian, if you check the GitHub, our open source over there, most of the parts were written using Golang. We have a few parts also written in Java, as well as the more lower level C++ as well as C. But for the application level, definitely we implement that using Solidity. So basically different kinds of pretty standard programming language that we use, and the lower from infrastructure level we go to, the lower level of the programming languages that we are using right now.
Makes sense. Yeah, I think that totally makes sense. Going back to the bridge earlier that you mentioned that you're trying to build, I'm just curious. Would the current, there's a lot of current bridge solution, or maybe interchain interoperability solution, right? Hyperlane layer 0, for example. And do you think would those be compatible with what you're building for your layer 2 blockchain? Yeah. I'm not sure.
Yeah, so in fact, first of all these bridge systems, they are not yet quantum resistant except the StarkNet, the STARK, right?
Yeah.
So in fact, we are actually looking into their systems. They are actually giving us a lot of inspiration on what kind of features that's required, while at the same time, the underlying foundation of our ecosystem is to make sure it's quantum resistant. So, so what we are trying to do right now is that we are inspired by the existing systems, including Layer 0, and especially about other chains, for example, like the ZK Rollup, ZK EVM, and other kinds of like the ZK Snark-based systems. And at the same time, we are also trying to work on a similar system, but on the quantum resistance context. So, for example, like the ZK Rollup, we are actually looking into a recent paper actually published last year on Crypto 2023. There was a paper about the quantum resistant ZK Snark. So we are actually studying about that and see how we will be able to develop something making use of that technology in order to build a bridge. Yeah.
Exciting. Yeah. Well, hopefully something will come out in the in the near future. Yeah. Okay. So just a few more questions from my side. Oh, you can quit out the screen sharing, by the way. Yeah. There we go. Cool. Yeah. So I'm curious for the future, right? How? So I think you mentioned earlier that I think basically similar to like the Moore's law for the number of transistors, keep doubling every 18 months, and we also see that qubit will probably, I think if earlier I saw one on your slide, they probably like not even double, but like quadruple for X. I think once every 2 years. So yeah, where how will this like quantum computing and Web3 evolve in like the next few years in your prediction? Yeah.
So I would look into two areas. The first area is so-called the public domain information. Like Google, IBM, they continue publishing information about how many qubits they built. Because basically what they are doing is to pitch to the general public about what kind of computers that they are selling. So for example, like early on, I mentioned about this 1,000 qubit IBM machine that people can actually remotely access it and run their, say, their tools. For example, some of them are actually using the IBM machine to do the financial analytics. They can do that. This is one area. So this basically symbolizes one thing. One thing is that, say, last year, 1,000 qubit is already very mature. So this is actually kind of like the baseline. Another area that I will look into will be some academic papers or some research labs. So you say some state-owned research labs. What kind of information? It may not be publicly published. It may be some of the information that hearsay, or somebody just talk about that when we attend some of the conferences. For example, myself as a cryptographer, I go to those conferences regularly. So we actually discuss with each other in a very regular basis. And we also have some information. And this basically back us about our prediction, like 3 years, 5 years, the quantum computer will be mature enough, right? So this is actually the information from so-called experts. The experts will say, okay, right now we in the lab we will be able to build, say, 10,000 qubits or 4,096 qubits. So that's basically doable. but can only be accessed by a small group of experts. We cannot exclude that any of the experts are insiders or some of the malicious users, right? And or maybe some other financial or political reason that they need to attack or they need to do some kinds of malicious thing in order to say like compromise one wallet of Bitcoin or a couple of targeted wallet addresses is possible. So when we talk about the maturity about the quantum computer, I always think about what expert says and also what kind of public domain information that I can I can obtain. And then there's always a gap in between, and that gap is about the commercial transformation.
Interesting, fascinating. So, yeah, hopefully, would you say that what you're building is like quite ahead of the time? Because I think according to your prediction on your slide and what you have gathered from public information, right? Looks like we are 2034 or 2033, right? Is when we have the 100k qubit that will be able to crack Bitcoin ecosystem, which is super scary for whoever is in Web3 if that day ever come, right? Yeah. So I mean, what you're building is like, would you say is like quite far ahead of time? Yeah.
Yeah. So imagine one thing by say 5 years from now, like 2029, 100,000 qubit becomes cheap enough. So every single hacker will be able to rent it. Say AWS is renting this 100,000 qubits. And then hundreds of thousands of hackers, they are going to just rent the 100,000 qubit quantum computer for say 8 hours or 10 hours to compromise a wallet address. Say you have a Bitcoin wallet address and that Bitcoin wallet address has not so many, maybe a few BTC. And it's hard to imagine like one BTC at that time it will worth how much. And if you are not like changing the Bitcoin to post-quantum early enough, and then by 2029 it's already too late to do it. So that's why if you say that if the technology right now is too early, actually it's already very, very late that to upgrade the existing system to quantum resistant. So for example, like if you say Bitcoin is not upgraded by now, and later on we are going to do the upgrade, say somebody just immediately change Bitcoin to quantum resistant by spending the next 2 years time working full time to make it quantum resistant. That's 2026. And then we have to convince everybody to change their wallet because they actually need to create a new wallet, a quantum resistant wallet, rather than using the existing wallet. The existing wallet will never become quantum resistant. We have to transfer all the tokens from our existing wallet to a quantum resistant wallet. So it will take time for us to transfer all our tokens from our existing wallet, which is not quantum resistant, to quantum resistant. So if your quantum resistant wallet is not ready today, then it's actually becoming I'm not sure whether it is disaster or not, but I'm just very worrisome that whether we will be able to have enough time. Because think about the education that we need, because not everybody is technical as we do. Yeah. So we have to teach everybody, hey, you cannot just use this one forever. You have to create a quantum resistant wallet. And then you have to transfer that to the quantum resistant wallet well in advance. And you also need to make sure all your wallets have already transferred. Because a lot of my friends sometimes just lost track about the wallets they have and all that. It will definitely take time for the public to complete all the transformation or all the transfer actually from the non-quantum resistant wallet to the quantum resistant wallet. Yeah, so that would take years. Even for the government, the US government, they are already announced to do the upgrade to this year. Why? Rather than waiting for the future, because they know they have the federal government, and for different departments, it will take years for them to do all the upgrades. So like I remember back to 1998, At that time I was already doing my PhD. So back to 1998, the federal government announced to upgrade the encryption system from DES to AES. It's called Data Encryption Standard to Advanced Encryption Standard. So they started from 1998, and then they completed all the thing in 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's
long time.
yeah, it took 10 years to finish all the upgrade. While at that time, DES was still considered secure. And but of course, right now, DES will no longer consider secure. 56 bit is just too short. Yeah. So the time for doing the migration is so critical that we have to upgrade now in order to have enough time to complete the upgrade before the quantum computer become mature.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think when you put it like that, I think totally makes sense. Yeah, hopefully we'll be ready for a, a post-quantum world, right? Yeah, just two more questions before we close out the show. One is, do you have any advice for people who want to run their own Web3 company?
So I would say a lot of people will have a lot of great ideas. My main advice is just to do it. Just try to execute your idea as early as possible. Don't need to plan a lot. Just do it. And if it is not working, you learn something, you connect some dots, and then you will be able to come up with a greater idea, better idea. And also you continue doing that, then it actually increases the chance of successful. So so to me, I think just do it rather than thinking about it. It's my greatest advice to everybody.
I see. Yeah, I totally agree. I think taking action is always better than just talking, putting ideas. So and then final question: where can I think you already shared the QR code earlier in the slideshare, but where can people follow you or your company? Any other links that you would like people to know about? Feel free to share with us here. You can just say it out loud and then.
So Abelian, ABELIAN. So just search Abelian blockchain. Then it's basically the first link, Abelian blockchain. So remember to add the blockchain there. The reason is that Abelian itself is actually a mathematical term. The reason why we call it the Abelian is that Abelian is actually a Belgian mathematician's name. And if you study cryptography, almost the first class, you are going to learn a mathematical data structure called Abelian group. So Abelian group is a very elegant mathematical structure that the lattice-based cryptography is using it, even elliptic curve cryptography is using it. And that's the reason why we call it the Abelian, because all the cryptographers know what that is. So that's why on Google search, if you just search Abelian, you may search Abelian group. You may find the Abelian group mathematical structure. And that's why you just put in Abelian blockchain. That's us.
I see. Awesome. Yeah, I'll make sure to put your company link down in the show note as well too, so that people can access it. Duncan, thank you so much for your time today. It's been great chatting, learning about Abelian Foundation, what you guys are doing, and how quantum computing and how we move the survivor of post-quantum world. Right? It's very exciting chat. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. This is really great. I always love sharing all the crazy, interesting stuff that I have been working basically my entire career with all my friends. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah, super exciting. Thank you. And we are back to my studio. What do you guys think about this episode with Duncan Wong? Personally, I've learned a lot in this episode, and it seems that we still have a lot of preparation to do to get ready for the post-quantum world, where quantum computing will be ubiquitous, like your everyday GPU gaming card. I think Duncan is certainly an expert in the field of cryptography and quantum computing as well, given his decades of experience in the field. I'm excited to see how his company will evolve in the future and where they will be heading. For the next episode, we'll be talking to Jay and Paul from the Accumulate Network. If you guys did watch the previous episode with Jonathan Chambliss, then Jay has actually appeared in that episode. And in this next episode, right, we'll be diving into Jay's main company, which is Accumulate, is an identity-based blockchain protocol with multi-chain support and human-readable addresses. If you like this episode, please like and subscribe because it would mean a lot to me. Thank you for watching and see you next time.